Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Debbie and I read a lot of books, and I've got a book for you today, and it's Breaking the Silence by Casey Watson. Basically, Casey Watson is a pseudonym for a woman who is a foster parent, and she does quite a few books about her experiences as a foster parent, and there's a list kind of in the back of this book of other books that she has written. So it's non-fiction, it's based on true stories. The tagline on it is two little boys lost and unloved, one woman determined to make a difference. Everything obviously has got like names changed to protect people. I said it's a pseudonym, so even the author is using a different name so that she's not able to put anybody like in danger or at risk or anything from the stories that she tells, which are based on true stories. And on the back, the blurb says, "Looking after two 9-year-old boys was never going to be easy, especially with two boys with such different needs. But it's not long before Casey realises that with Jensen and Georgie, she's facing her toughest challenge yet." So we start off by meeting Jensen, and about halfway through the book we meet Georgie. So yeah, it starts off, you find out about the author's family situation with her husband and her kids and her grandkids. This is her 6th book. So the other books available are The Boy Who No One Loved, Crying for Help, Little Prisoners, Too Hurt to Stay, and Mummy's Little Helper. But this concentrates on just 2 boys that she has looked after in her life as a foster parent. So it starts off with Jensen, who is a boy who is kind of dropped off on her doorstep because his mum went on holiday, leaving his big sister in charge. So it's like leaving a teenager and a 9-year-old to fend for themselves for like 2-3 weeks while she's away. So yeah, there's a story of neglect there. The other little boy, Georgie, has just grown up in care because he was born to a teen mum who couldn't look after him. So she straight away just said, you know, I cannot handle this and I'm going to try and get my boy somewhere where he can be looked after properly. As you can tell, it's quite a hard-hitting story. It's kind of bittersweet at times, but I'll admit it was quite a nice book to read because you're looking at 2 people who are kind of devoting their lives to looking after these kids and how much work they do to look after the children in their care. So that makes it a really, really sweet story on that part. When you look at, you know, the stories of the different kids that have come through their doors, obviously the fact that it's based on a true story means that there were points when you're just like, I can't believe there are actually people in the world who would do something like that. Especially when it comes to the story of Jensen and realising that, you know, there are people out there who do just leave their kids at home with no one to fend for them. It's quite sad seeing how they're looked after by Casey and her husband and everything they do to care for their kids. It is quite a beautiful story, and I think it's really beautiful there are people out there who really just do everything in their power to look after kids who are in foster care. In the case of these stories, it's all kind of like a temporary basis until they can get everything sorted. So like in the case of Jensen, they are trying to kind of, obviously there's social services looking into mother, trying to work out if, you know, the kids are allowed to go home. They're investigating her new fiance, which holds everything up as well. And then you've got a kid who is just obsessed with his mother and is trying so hard to see her. So when everything does go tits up and he's told he's not allowed to see her, he kind of goes on a bit of a downward spiral. And then you're also looking at the relationship between Jensen and Georgie, especially when you find out that they know each other, they go to school together. Jensen was a bit of a bully, and when they're living in the same house, tensions get higher, and Casey is trying to kind of establish that relationship between the 2 boys, and also establish the relationship between herself and the boys, especially when she starts to realise that she is making assumptions about the kids, which isn't always the best thing to do, just as a person, never mind a foster parent. When she's making assumptions about Jensen, she's making assumptions about Georgie, Georgie's autistic, and so she's trying to find ways to communicate with him. One of the first things that happens when she gets into the house is she finds out that he prefers to eat white food, and she's just like, oh, that sounds really difficult. And the guy who brings Georgie to the house is like, it's not as limited as you think. Here's a list of foods that he will eat. When we say white food, we just mean light food, so you can put other things in there as long as the food is primarily white or beige. He's not as fussy as you think he is. And then also the fact that he's obviously grown up in care, and all the things they've learned about Georgie through that time. It's really cool to see actually that when it comes to a child with autism, they do have so many things, and they've got so much stuff written down to accommodate him. And so, because you don't really think about stuff like that. I mean, I'll admit I haven't, so it was really interesting to read about how they do think about those things, because as Casey is getting to know Georgie, she realises that, you know, like, he'll stand outside the bathroom because he's not sure if he's allowed to go in, and it's because when he was in care there were pictures of people around the place, like saying like who could go into what rooms and stuff. So it's like the idea like there are several bathrooms, it was say, alright, so these kids are allowed to go in this bathroom, these kids are allowed to go in this bathroom. So by having pictures of the family around the house and saying these are all the people who can use the bathroom, it makes me go, oh, okay, so there's my picture there, so I can go in there. And yeah, the use of the pictures throughout the house is one thing that Casey's just like, oh, I'm so glad that this has worked, because obviously when you're taking a child out of their normal routine and putting them in a house that is unfamiliar, she wants to make him at home as possible. So when she kind of stumbles on little things like the pictures, ways to help him settle, it's obviously really helpful for her and her husband. Throughout the book you realise that she does have a tendency to favour Georgie over Jensen, and there are certain parts of the book where she realises that she is favouring Georgie, and it's mainly because he has more needs. I say more, different. He has different needs to Jensen. For me, the really, really big part of the story was the relationship between Jensen and Georgie, because it goes from a relationship of kind of just kids who know each other at school and don't really like each other, to one that's forming of like friends and brothers. When you start to notice the brotherly relationship that these two kids are developing, it is really, really sweet. It was a really, really good book to read. I think this probably took me about a month on and off to read, just understanding it from that point of view, from seeing that story from the point of view of a foster parent and how they deal with their kids' needs, and you know how even after such a long time of being a foster parent, how they are still learning, because no two kids are the same. I mean, one of the first things that happens when they get Georgie into the house is that he has an aversion to pink, and the room that they have set aside for Georgie is painted pink, and so he goes in and starts screaming, and the guy who's dropped Georgie off is just like, a lick of paint will fix everything. And there's Casey going, that was my pink room. Because she wanted to have a room for a boy and a room for a girl. And I guess in her mind she hadn't quite prepared for the fact that there might come a point when she will have two boys in the house. To say it's a nice book feels weird when I'm talking about a story that is based on truth and about the foster system. But it was heartwarming and it was beautiful, and I'll admit, you know, when you're looking at the story of Jensen and his relationship with his mother and his sister and other parts of the story that come out in the book, which I'm not going to talk about because it would be a massive spoiler for what happens, you really, really do feel for Jensen when everything starts to come out about his home life. I mean, one of the quotes on the back of the book, from the book, that says, "Are you saying Georgie's going to live here?" Jensen groaned. "Here, in this house? He can't live here." And that's part of Jensen's assumptions about Georgie, based on their experience at school. Yeah, if you like stories that are based on truth, based on real stories, you know, non-fiction, if you just want to hear about something about the foster system, if you just want a nice story about brothers, yeah, that's Breaking the Silence by Casey Watson. I'll pop a link in the description to where you can find it. The next book I've got for you is A Place Called Here by Cecilia Ahern. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Debbie. That was Breaking the Silence by Casey Watson. As I said, I'll pop a link in the description to where you can find it. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. I put out videos every single Wednesday. I'll see you next week with another video.